Most people think expensive Ford failures are just bad luck or normal aging, but most of the time it isn't wear at all. It's heat, voltage drift, contaminated oil, and a few default settings slowly pushing parts out of their safe zone. In this video, I'll walk you through the exact habits and checks that stop early failures before they get expensive. We'll cover electrical stress, heat, fluid chemistry, and software behavior. Watch till the end, because the last one quietly decides whether your truck feels worn out at 8,000 or still strong past 200,000. Number 12, auto start stop plus battery management. Disable auto start stop before short trips to reduce battery stress immediately. Every short trip with auto start stop active is another deep cycle on a battery that was never meant to live at partial charge. The mistake isn't using the feature once in a while. It's letting the system hammer an AGM battery during constant 5-minute drives, then wondering why electronics start acting strange. Ford's battery management system monitors voltage and charging patterns, but when the battery weakens, voltage dips become erratic. That instability stresses modules over time and can trigger communication faults that look far more expensive than a simple battery issue. A quality AGM battery runs around $250 to $300. Ignore the warning signs and you can easily face $600 to $1,000 in diagnostic labor and module reprogramming before anyone admits the root cause was voltage instability. Symptoms usually show up as slow crank, auto start-stop disabling itself, random warning messages, or flickering infotainment screens. Load testing the battery once a year with a basic tester and resetting the battery management system after replacement keeps charging strategy accurate. If you primarily drive long highway distances, the strain is far lower. But electrical stability is only the surface problem, because heat management inside your transmission is even less forgiving. Number 11, hidden transmission temperature access. Check transmission temperature today before towing anything heavy this weekend. A transmission rarely fails without warning, but most owners never see the warning because they are watching the wrong gauge. The mistake is assuming that a normal-looking dashboard means the fluid temperature is safe. On many Ford trucks and SUVs, the actual transmission temperature is buried in the instrument cluster or accessible through an onboard diagnostic scan. When fluid consistently climbs above 220 degrees under load, its protective additives begin to break down. That heat thins the fluid, reduces clutch grip, and slowly glazes internal friction material. A fluid service might cost $180 to $300. Ignore rising temperatures while towing or hauling, and you could be staring at a $3,000 to $6,000 rebuild down the road. Early symptoms are subtle. Delayed shifts when warm, a slight shudder under light throttle, or a faint burnt smell after heavy use. Monitoring real temperature data with a scan tool or through the hidden cluster display gives you control. Keeping sustained temps closer to 210 degrees and servicing fluid every 30 to 50,000 miles under heavy use dramatically extends lifespan. Light-duty commuters who never tow may not see extreme heat, but assuming lifetime fluid is safe is a gamble. Because the next issue is not about heat alone, it is about software quietly learning the wrong habits inside your drivetrain. Number 10, electronic parking brake wear from auto release. Engage manual parking brake control on steep grades to protect actuators. Modern electronic parking brakes feel effortless, which is exactly why most drivers never question them. The mistake is relying on automatic release during heavy towing, steep hill starts, or repeated stop-and-go situations where the actuator motor is cycling under load. Each time the system releases itself while torque is already applied, the small electric motor and internal gears absorb stress that a traditional cable once handled mechanically. Over thousands of cycles, that strain can accelerate wear inside the actuator assembly. Replacing rear brake pads might cost $200 to $300 during routine service. Replacing an electronic parking brake actuator, however, can run anywhere from $900 to $1,500 once parts and labor are factored in. Early symptoms include a delayed release, grinding noise when engaging, or a parking brake warning that appears intermittently. Using manual control on steep grades or while towing reduces unnecessary cycling. During brake service, a technician should inspect actuator function with a scan tool to ensure proper calibration. Drivers in flat areas who rarely tow will see far less strain, so this is not a universal failure scenario. Still, assuming every factory convenience setting is harmless can be expensive, because the next vulnerability is not mechanical at all. It is software that adapts quietly and sometimes learns the wrong behavior over time. Number 9, adaptive transmission learning reset. Reset adaptive transmission tables after fluid changes to prevent harsh shifting. Never resetting adaptive transmission tables after a fluid change is a quiet mistake that builds over time. Ford transmissions continuously adjust shift pressure and timing based on driving behavior and clutch wear. When old fluid is replaced with fresh fluid, the friction characteristics change, yet the control module may still be operating on learned pressure values from worn conditions. That mismatch can produce harsher shifts, delayed engagement, or unnecessary clutch slip while the system relearns on its own. A proper adaptive reset using a scan tool or foreskin software costs nothing if you already have the equipment, and many shops include it during service. Skip it, and what starts as a minor shift flare can accelerate internal wear that contributes to a $2,500 to $4,000 rebuild years earlier than expected. Symptoms often show up as a bump when downshifting, a hesitation into drive, or inconsistent shift feel between cold and warm operation. The reset process should only be done after fluid service or when persistent harsh shifting is present. Expect temporary roughness for the first few drive cycles while the system relearns. Light use drivers who have never serviced fluid may not need immediate intervention. Still, assuming the transmission will figure itself out is risky. And what many drivers misunderstand next is how a simple driving mode choice can steadily raise temperatures and fuel consumption without obvious warning. Number 8, tow/haul misuse. Use tow-haul mode only when actually pulling significant weight. Tow or haul mode is engineered to protect the drivetrain under load, but using it incorrectly can quietly cost you money. The mistake is leaving the mode engaged while driving unloaded for weeks at a time, or never engaging it when actually towing. This setting changes shift mapping, increases engine braking, and often holds gears longer. When used without a trailer, it can keep engine speed higher than necessary, increasing fuel consumption and generating additional heat that serves no purpose. An extra tank of fuel every month might not feel dramatic, but at $300 to $400 a year in wasted fuel, it adds up quickly. Compare that to $0 to simply press the correct button when you need it. When towing, failing to engage tow or haul can allow more frequent gear hunting, which increases transmission temperature and long-term wear. Monitoring transmission temperature with a scan tool or cluster display provides confirmation that the mode is helping rather than hurting. Drivers in mountainous terrain may benefit from tow or haul even when lightly loaded because of engine braking advantages. Flatland commuters, however, rarely need it daily. The key is intentional use, not habit. And while fuel loss is frustrating, inefficient combustion and carbon buildup create a deeper issue that many owners never connect to their driving patterns. Number 7, fuel economy monitoring and carbon. Reset trip meter every tank and monitor instant fuel economy closely. Most drivers glance at the average fuel economy display and assume it tells the whole story. The mistake is trusting a long-term average without paying attention to instant fuel consumption or resetting trip data regularly. Driving style directly influences combustion quality, and repeated short trips with gentle throttle never allow the engine to reach full operating efficiency. Over time, incomplete combustion contributes to carbon deposits, especially in direct injection engines, where fuel no longer washes the intake valves. $300 to $400 a year in extra fuel may not feel catastrophic, but that slow bleed compounds. Compare that to $0 to reset your trip meter every tank and monitor instant fuel economy for a few weeks. Watching how throttle input affects real-time consumption trains you to reduce unnecessary enrichment and extended idling. A simple tool cue is right on your steering wheel controls. Enable instant fuel economy in the cluster and track changes per tank. Highway commuters who regularly drive 20 to 30 uninterrupted minutes see fewer carbon concerns because the engine reaches proper temperature. Short trip drivers, however, often notice rough idle, slightly reduced throttle response, or subtle hesitation over time. Fuel data is more than a mileage number. It is a window into combustion cue's health. And when combustion efficiency drops, the deposits forming inside the intake system become more than just a fuel economy issue. Number 6, direct injection carbon buildup. Inspect intake valves periodically to prevent hidden carbon restriction buildup. Rough idle at 60,000 miles is rarely random in a direct injection engine. The mistake is assuming modern fuel systems keep everything clean automatically. In a direct injection setup, fuel sprays directly into the combustion chamber, which means gasoline no longer washes over the intake valves. Oil vapors from the crankcase ventilation system settle on those valves and bake into carbon over time. As deposits thicken, airflow becomes restricted, combustion efficiency drops, and misfires begin to appear under load. Preventive cleaning additives may cost $20 to $30 per bottle, but once heavy buildup sets in, a professional walnut blasting service can run $800 to $1,200. Ignore it long enough and persistent misfires can contribute to catalytic converter damage that exceeds $2,000. Early symptoms include hesitation during acceleration, uneven idle, reduced fuel economy, or a check engine light tied to misfire codes. Using top-tier fuel, ensuring proper crankcase ventilation function, and occasionally inspecting intake valves with a borescope during service can catch buildup early. Engines with both port and direct injection are less prone to severe deposits, so not every Ford model faces equal risk. Still, carbon does not stay isolated to the intake side because the residue that escapes combustion eventually contaminates engine oil, and that is where the real internal wear begins. Number 5, coolant chemistry breakdown. Test coolant chemistry annually before corrosion silently compromises cooling passages. Coolant rarely fails in a dramatic way. The mistake is believing that extended life coolant truly lasts the lifetime of the vehicle. Over time, the corrosion inhibitors inside the coolant deplete, and the fluid's ability to protect aluminum, steel, and gasket materials weakens. As additive chemistry breaks down, microscopic corrosion can begin inside the radiator, heater core, and cylinder head passages. That internal erosion does not trigger an immediate warning light, but it steadily compromises sealing surfaces and cooling efficiency. A coolant flush might cost $150 to $200 every few years. Compare that to $2,000 to $3,000 for a head gasket repair or heater core replacement once corrosion has taken hold. Symptoms often appear subtly as fluctuating temperature readings, faint coolant odor, discolored overflow fluid, or small unexplained coolant loss over time. Testing coolant with inexpensive test strips during routine service provides a simple chemistry check. Replacing coolant every 5 years or sooner under severe use maintains protective balance. Using the wrong coolant type can accelerate corrosion, so mixing formulas is a risk worth avoiding. Light-use vehicles in moderate climates may stretch intervals slightly, but assuming factory fill lasts forever is optimistic at best. Because once fluid chemistry starts degrading, lubrication chemistry inside the engine becomes the next critical vulnerability. If this breakdown is helping you protect your truck and avoid expensive repairs, take a second to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next checklist. And share below which issue you've already noticed on your Ford or recently fixed yourself. Number 4, turbo heat soak. Idle briefly after heavy acceleration to protect turbocharger bearings from coking. Shutting down a turbocharged engine immediately after hard driving is a habit that seems harmless, but carries long-term consequences. The mistake is cutting ignition the moment you pull into the driveway after towing or highway acceleration. Turbochargers spin at extremely high speeds, and rely on a steady flow of oil for cooling and lubrication. When the engine stops abruptly, oil flow ceases while the turbo housing remains extremely hot. That trapped heat can bake residual oil inside the bearing housing, forming carbon deposits known as coking. Over time, those deposits restrict lubrication and accelerate bearing wear, allowing the engine to idle for 60 to 90 seconds after heavy load costs nothing. Replacing a worn turbocharger, however, can range from $2,500 to $4,000 depending on labor and parts. Early symptoms include a faint whining noise, reduced boost pressure, oil consumption, or sluggish acceleration under load. Monitoring oil condition and ensuring proper oil change intervals reduces the likelihood of deposit formation. A simple tool cue is paying attention to oil color and smell during routine service, or using an oil analysis kit for deeper insight. Naturally aspirated engines are not affected in the same way, so this concern primarily applies to EcoBoost owners. And while turbo heat damages components from the outside in, fuel dilution inside the crankcase attacks critical bearings from within. Number 3, fuel dilution in oil. Drive 20 continuous minutes weekly to burn off fuel dilution. Short trips in a direct injection turbo engine create a problem most owners never see. The mistake is driving 5 or 10 minutes at a time and assuming the oil is fine because the oil life monitor says so. During cold starts, extra fuel is injected to stabilize combustion. If the engine does not stay hot long enough, some of that fuel slips past the piston rings and mixes with the oil. Over time, gasoline contamination thins the oil's viscosity and reduces its ability to protect bearings and cam surfaces under load. An additional oil change every 4,000 to 5,000 miles might cost $80 to $100. Ignore dilution long enough and you risk accelerated bearing wear that can lead to a $4,000 to $8,000 engine repair. Early warning signs include a rising oil level on the dipstick, a noticeable fuel smell in the oil, rough idle after short trips, or increased engine noise once fully warm. Driving at least 20 to 30 continuous minutes once a week helps evaporate excess fuel. Using an oil analysis kit provides measurable confirmation of dilution levels. Long highway commuters are far less vulnerable because sustained heat burns off contaminants. Still, oil that cannot maintain proper viscosity loses its protective margin quickly. And when electrical voltage instability enters the equation, internal wear accelerates even further. Number 2, BMS reset after battery replacement. Reset the battery management system immediately after installing a new battery. Replacing a battery without resetting the battery management system is a detail many owners overlook. The mistake is installing a fresh battery and assuming the truck will automatically adapt. Ford's charging system tracks battery age and performance history to regulate alternator output. When a new battery is installed but the system still believes the old one is present, charging strategy can remain mismatched. Over time, improper charge rates may shorten battery life and contribute to voltage irregularities that confuse sensitive electronic modules. A proper reset using a scan tool or foreskin software costs nothing if you already have access to the equipment. Skipping that step could mean replacing a $300 battery prematurely or facing $1,500 or more. In module diagnostics, if voltage instability triggers fault codes, symptoms often show up as random warning lights, inconsistent auto start stop behavior, dimming interior lights, or infotainment glitches. The reset procedure is straightforward, but must be done correctly to avoid calibration errors. So using the proper tool is important. Older pre-2010 models without advanced battery management are less affected. Still, assuming a battery swap is plug and play on newer systems invites unnecessary risk because even stable voltage cannot compensate for oil that has chemically broken down inside the engine. And that final mistake carries the highest price of all: Number 1. Oil Life Monitor. Blind trust. Change engine oil earlier than recommended when driving severe short trip cycles. Relying blindly on the Oil Life Monitor can create a false sense of security. The mistake is assuming the percentage on the dashboard fully reflects your driving conditions. Ford's Oil Life system uses algorithms based on temperature, load, and engine cycles, but it cannot directly measure fuel dilution, contamination, or severe short trip usage. When oil remains in service too long under harsh conditions, its additive package depletes and viscosity can thin beyond optimal protection. Bearings, cam journals, and timing components depend on a stable film of oil. And once that film weakens, metal surfaces begin to experience increased friction. An extra oil change at 4,000 to 5,000 miles might cost $70 to $100. Extending intervals under severe use could contribute to long-term wear that leads to $6,000 to $12,000 in engine repair or replacement. Warning signs include louder valve train noise, darker than expected oil, or a fuel odor on the dipstick. Monitoring oil condition visually and occasionally sending a sample to a laboratory analysis service provides measurable data. Highway drivers who regularly operate at full temperature may safely follow longer intervals, but short trip and towing conditions demand shorter service cycles. The Oil Life Monitor is a guide, not a guarantee, and once internal bearing surfaces score, there is no software update that can undo mechanical wear. Most expensive failures aren't sudden. They build quietly through heat, voltage, drift, contaminated oil, and small habits repeated for months. Keep stress in the safe zone, shorten harsh cycles, and run the monthly check. That's how you keep parts alive and repair bills small. If this checklist helped, hit like so it stays on your radar, subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown, and comment with the one habit you're changing first. In the next video, we'll expose which models buyers keep walking past and the pattern of problems behind that reputation so you can avoid the mistakes that get expensive long after the test drive.